morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another salty Saturday morning. We got a lot to talk about today, including talk about our arch nemesis, James Mangold. But first, let me introduce my fantastic panel of nerds, starting with Matt Vader 74. How you doing, buddy?
Waking up, I'm trying to get caffeinated, and I think I'm ready to go. We're going to talk about your ego today, right? Is that what we're going to do?
Well, we talk about that every Saturday.
Yeah.
Do it live.
Remember.
Do it live.
Yeah.
All right. And we've got our, he's here, he's queer, he's Brian from the Popcast, our friendly neighborhood, non-binary, genderqueer shield against everything woke. How you doing, Brian?
Not bad, sir. Not bad. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. So, guys, the Popcast is releasing a really awesome documentary on Galaxy Quest today. And if you hang around until the end of the stream, you will be automatically redirected to the premiere of this amazing documentary that I know Brian and Shane, or is it Shay AI in?
No, I didn't use AI, Shane.
Didn't use AI, Shane?
No, it's too long. That would be impossible at this stage.
And then we have the man, the myth, the legend himself, Tom Connors from Midnight's Edge. Thank you so much for being here today, Tom.
Where that sumbitch owes me money.
What's up, Tommy?
Tom, he owes me money.
Oh, you owe yourself money? Is that what you're saying?
It's
okay.
fake Tom.
Oh, fake Tom. Okay.
Yeah.
AI Tom.
Don't you see I got the goatee? I'm from the other universe.
Okay.
I get the joke now.
I don't
Mirror
know.
universe, Tom. It's mirror universe.
Right.
It's a joke that never lands.
You need some Just for Men or something, bro. It's blending too good. I didn't even see you had a goatee today.
Yeah, you need some contrast there, Tom. Wear a dark shirt.
I can't help it. I'm so Irish that I got no skin color.
Pasty white man.
Lives in his
Pasty
basement.
white man.
And guys, I want to introduce you to a new member of the panel, first time on the show, and he has a hidden gem of a YouTube channel called Primitive Ramblings. When you welcome PR to our live stream, how you doing, buddy?
Not doing too bad. Glad to be here, among fellow basement dwellers, according to James Mangold. So,
indeed,
be good talking to
good company.
Yeah.
But guys, so Primitive Ramblings, he's kind of like an early version of Heel versus Babyface. I'm really enjoying his channel.
Yeah.
He's got a lot of good takes out there, and plus his voice, very smooth, very Irish, British.
I went and checked out his channel, and I went, oh, look, it's a guy who can talk for 3 hours about an hour and a half long movie, just like Matthew Kadish can. And I was like, oh, no wonder Matthew likes this guy, because
sounds about right.
He's a baby British version of Kadish. So yeah, I get it. I totally get it.
Well, yeah, the difference is Kadish actually sounds like Harrison Ford trying to tell you about a movie. I went into the movie. I thought it was pretty good.
I guess that's better than
fucking popcorn didn't have enough butter.
Something like George Lucas talking about a movie, which is what I usually get.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I want to go over to the chat and welcome everyone who's here. Anthony Mark watching from the Brooklyn Half Marathon.
It is more like George Lucas now that you say it.
Yeah, I know. We got Danny's mom, Penny. Good to see you, Penny. We got Goran Falf. We got No Money G. Good to see you, No Money G. Astro Nerd Boy, one of our salty Saturday superstars. Good to see you. The ever-present Mexican Iron Man. Hey, Mike, how you doing? The Joker's voice. We got Gavin Blackburn, our resident super sticker extraordinaire. Who else we got? We got Whiskey Jack, and let's see here.
Lots of people.
We got lots of people. But that reminds me. Hey, Vader, can you put in an alert in Discord that we've gone live?
Sure.
I usually do that, but I totally forgot today.
Yeah, no problem.
We got Dungeon Master Blaster, Dark Ray, Jeff Smith, Craig Daniels, Anima Confusa, Trivia Queen. How you doing, Anima? Chappie. We got let's see here, Mr. Farnsworth. So we got a lot of people. Proto Astation, Studio Lou, and of course Midnight's Edge After Dark. I wonder who that could be. All right, so let's see here.
Some loser.
Okay, and real quick, we just want to give a shout out to our superstars here. So we got Scotty Dub, who outbid himself for $499 in the chat. Then we got Bob Dorsey following a close second, with the Astro Nerd Boy taking up the tail end of that. These are our superstars. Really appreciate them. We've also got our loyalists who already dropped super chats today, the Joker's Voice and Mexican Iron Man. Thank you both so much. You are our most consistent supporters. We really appreciate you. And of course, we got our super thankers, Backyard TARDIS and JT Gunn. Those are guys who actually leave us tips on our videos. We appreciate that. And our top contributor, of course, is Scotty Dub. He has been so supportive of our stuff. We really appreciate Scotty and everything he's done for us. But we appreciate everyone who gives us super chat. So if you guys want to, basically throw your hat into the ring and have us address a question or a comment that you want, feel free to drop super chats during the live stream. We will stop and read them. And we totally appreciate you guys. All right. So let's get to the good stuff, shall we? But first, real quick, become a Salty Justice Warrior. Link in the description if you want to get a really cool t-shirt. In fact, we've got a little video that Brian made for us showcasing the shirt, so we're going to show it real quick.
Brian, we talked.
Yeah.
Hello?
We talked.
Hot chick.
We need boobs in that commercial.
Yeah.
We talk about this every week, bro.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. Remind me on Monday, and I'll make it happen. Okay?
Oh boy.
How big of boobs you want?
As big as you can get.
Okay. Well, let me tell you something. You are asking for something that you're not gonna want to see the details of that. It's gonna be.
Are we buying Brian boobs?
I have abilities.
Okay, let's do it.
Surgical
All right.
hand.
It's gonna be the most
He's gonna
ridiculous
get us
model
into
on the planet.
So
Wait.
many things. He's gonna make us get into so many activities that us straight folk are not part of.
Yeah.
Just by us being his ally.
That's right. Don't
We
forget,
could use this to our advantage.
I'm grooming you.
We gotta go down to Fremont Street, and that one chick who's got the watermelons on both sides. Hey, put this on. I'm gonna take a couple pictures of you, okay?
Yes,
So
but you too,
it will be
you
good.
too can join the Salty Army and become an SJW. Link in the description. Go check out our merch store. We got a lot of cool shirts there, including Salty Justice Warrior. And just so everyone knows, our goal for this live stream is 5 new members for our YouTube subscription. We've been a little bit behind because of the robbery here at the studio and churning out members content, but we just released some videos yesterday where I found in an old hard drive when I was putting away stuff, our very first, I don't even know if you saw this, it was our very first video camera test where we had a couple cameras going into a laptop, and we were trying to figure out how to get cell phone cameras to work with YouTube. And it's 2 short videos of this was even before Jude was like a regular on this thing, but it was kind of like a fun, kind of like nostalgic thing to see us in the old dining room studio with the terrible backdrops and the bad mics, mic discipline, and
I think we just had like a green sheet on one side and our
right behind you. Yeah,
it was awful. Yeah, it was great.
All right, guys. So you ready to talk about some news stuff?
Yeah, let's do it.
We're gonna start off the show by talking about the Galactic Starcruiser at Disney World shutting down.
I'm so disappointed by that.
Man,
I'm so goddamn. I'm not even being sarcastic right now. I legitimately am. Yeah.
So basically,
Why?
Disney World's costly Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser is going to close in September, and basically the voyage, the package for this thing costs around $1,200 per person per day, with family packages reaching closer to $6,000 for the 2-day excursion. Basically, you could actually have a week-long trip for a family for less money going to a typical Disney vacation. But the main gist of the overarching story of the experience goes as follows. You're a passenger on the Starcruiser for a 2-day voyage. During that trip, a First Order officer and several stormtroopers board the ship to root out resistant spies. Alongside these villains are spies, musicians, rebels, and reluctant heroes, everything that makes up a Star Wars story. And of course, some familiar faces also appear, including Chewbacca, Rey, and Kylo Ren. Disney reportedly spent $2 billion to construct its 2 immersive Star Wars parks in Florida and California, though it's unclear if the cost of building the Starcruiser is included in the sum. I'm pretty sure it is. But the issue I have with this article is that the big draw was Kylo Ren and Rey. I think if thank you, Tom. Thank you. So I think that if we had actually had like actual Star Wars, in this,
Right.
like Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, the Millennium Falcon, Han, Chewie, like it would have, even though it was expensive, more people would have gone to it. It would have been more successful. Nobody wanted to go and experience the sequel trilogy. You know what I mean? Yeah. So Matt Vader 74, what's your take on Galactic Starcruiser shutting down?
Well, it's just like you said. I commented when it came out that this thing was overhyped, overpriced, and completely set in the wrong era of Star Wars, and that's why it failed. And I haven't had anybody convince me otherwise of this yet. If it had been set in the original trilogy era that we all grew up with and love, I feel like it probably would be selling out 3 years in advance.
Yeah.
So I mean, having Darth Vader do a raid on the thing or whatever with Luke Skywalker and Han and Chewie and stuff in there would have made a massive difference, I think, as far as attendance in this thing. And as far as the thing itself, the videos I've seen, the stuff that's in there, it looks pretty lame to me. I mean, the activities seemed very limited. The food seemed very weird and kind of just like normal food with weird food coloring and stuff thrown in it. And they have an excursion out to Star Wars land or whatever they call it there, and that comes with a regular price of a park ticket, right? So I don't know, man. I think it just is one of those things that they probably overthought and thought was going to be cool, but in the end isn't. You know what I mean? It's just one of those things that the more I looked into it, the more I told myself I'm never going to do this. And if you look at the rooms, they're tiny little rooms, and you're sleeping in little cubby holes inside the wall. They got weird little monitors and screens and stuff that probably don't do anything, and it's just the whole experience.
TV, actually,
the whole experience just looked. The whole experience just looked lame, to be perfectly honest with you. So,
and there were like a whole bunch of hidden costs too. Like if you wanted a lightsaber, that was going to be like an extra $500 or something like that. There's no TVs in these rooms, so you can just chill out in the room and watch TV and stuff like that. It's very bizarre. But Brian, you said that you were disappointed because you wanted to experience this. What's that all about?
Yeah. Every one of your criticisms is 100% valid. It's set in the wrong place. Why is there no TV? The rooms look like they're cramped. Doesn't look from the outside looking in like the best experience. And to top all that off, it's just too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
However, since I was a wee lad, I have dreamed of being a billionaire and making a Star Wars hotel. I've always thought it would be so rad to visit a themed hotel, a themed sci-fi hotel. And when I saw this happening, I was stoked. I'm like, even if it's subpar, like I would like to experience that with my kids. I have literally been saving money to do this. I'm not going to save enough before it closes. I'll guarantee you that. Between airfare and the actual cost of the thing. So I just thought I was gonna have a few more years to get down there and check it out. Not that I think it's gonna be some amazing thing, but like I'm just trying to check a bucket list off and experience that with my kids before they're too old. Like once your kids get late teens, like they don't want to do shit with you. So that's my thought.
True. That's very true. Primitive Ramblings. What's your ramblings about this?
I don't really understand the idea, as you were saying, like why they would go with Rey and Kylo Ren. It's like, if you went original trilogy with it, it's more likely to get people there. But I think it's just more evidence, that points to how sort of dead Star Wars is. Star Wars is essentially, a reanimated corpse that breaks wind now and again. That's really kind of how I look at it. And just to go with the idea of Rey, Kylo Ren, and even the Chewbacca that they had in that, because I remember covering it when like they first opened up, and like the Chewbacca like costume looked terrible. Just everything in it looked really bad. And yeah, you've also got the price for it like $6,000 for like a family for 2 days. And then even from what I understand, it's like you're very stuck to a schedule. But you've got very limited, well, I want to go and do this. You've got to kind of stick to.
Yeah, it's supposed to be interactive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Tom Connors, Disney spent a bunch of money building these like Star Wars additions to their theme parks, and this was supposed to be like a boutique hotel experience catering to like the super hardcore Star Wars fans, but it didn't give the super hardcore Star Wars fans anything they wanted. So it was left with like kind of like the filthy casuals who could afford such a thing. I mean, like for 2 people for 2 nights, you're looking to spend around $5,000 just in like the hotel, and they only had like 100 rooms there. So the idea that they're shutting it down so soon means that it wasn't making them any money. In fact, it was probably costing them money. So
no, in fact, it wasn't
this?
going to make any money. Mikey, our buddy in the chat there, Mexican Iron Man, actually did the math because he's an accountant, if you don't know that. And he figured at the rate they were going, it would take them 1,000 years to be profitable.
Wow.
He wasn't even kidding. He's not being hyperbolic either. There was no way they were going to make that money back.
Is that assuming that they're booked like a regular hotel?
He booked it. Yeah, he did an average because they're losing money. That's what he was saying, is no matter how you cut it, they're losing money because you got to pay all the overhead, all the actors, everything like that. At the end of the day, even though they were charging that much money, it was never going to make it.
How many? I wonder what their capacity was. How many people they could?
I think it was 100 was the total.
It was 100 rooms.
Yeah,
100 rooms. Yeah,
so probably 2 people per room or whatever.
No, it's 4 people. Two adults,
you
2
could
kids
fit
per
4
room.
people in them rooms.
Yeah,
Those
yeah.
little
Well,
prison
it's
cells.
designed for 2 adults and 2 kids. I've looked into it. Yeah, I don't know about losing money. I do know this though. I have a friend who is an influencer. I guess that's what we are on YouTube, and he's got about 800,000 subs, and he actually got a free trip.
Well, yeah.
And he took his kid and his wife, and he was like, it was awesome, had a great time. I'm like, would you be saying the same thing if you just spent $15,000? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, what Disney should have done is they should have just opened up the rooms for free, and then like gouged them on like special Star Wars food, special Star Wars.
Well,
the movie theater model.
Listen,
Yeah, exactly.
this has been done before, and it was done very successfully for quite a few years before they shut it down. And that was here in Vegas at the Hilton, at the Star Trek experience. It wasn't. They had the hotel. It was built in the hotel.
It wasn't. Yeah, but it wasn't. You didn't stay in the station though.
And that's the whole thing. But, you went into the station. They had the casino in the station.
I visited every year for like 10 years straight. Yeah,
and it was awesome. And you went in. You had the
it was
interactive
great.
things. You had Quark's Bar.
But I really wish I could have stayed on DS9 though. Well, that's what I wanted. I wanted to stay in a cabin and experience it.
And experience hearing Worf and Dax in the room next to you getting busy.
Yeah, just getting busy. I want to hang out with Mort at the bar and play Dabo. I'm just like, look. I'm too old to LARP, so like, I'll pay for it. I'll pay for it.
But I think to Vader's point, it's like they could have gone like a more traditional route with the hotel.
You're right.
Had elements inside the hotel that recreated, Star Wars. Like for instance, how cool would it be to go into the Mos Eisley Cantina? And have,
God, yes.
A beer, how great would it be to walk down the corridor of the Death Star? There's a lot of stuff that they could have done far cheaper.
They could have skipped the hotel and just made a Star Wars experience.
Yeah, they could have just built a regular hotel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they wouldn't need to charge like $1,200 a night for it. But
but then you could charge for the attraction of the like they charge for the Star Trek experience. They charge for that.
Yeah,
I'd much rather spend $25 on a Warp Core breach drink than
Yeah.
Lots of
oh my
stuff.
God, was that the drink that was like the size of
fog,
a bucket?
the
5
bowl, And the dry ice and stuff coming out. Yeah,
It was like a 5-pound bucket with dry ice in it. Yeah,
Yeah.
That was awesome.
But would you guys actually want to spend so like for you and your wife close to $5,000 for 2 nights to hang out with Kylo Ren and Rey?
No, and that's another thing. Like, I was saving money to go do this, but I could have busted out the credit card and went into debt, and I would have done that had it been my Star Wars. But because it wasn't my Star Wars, I dragged my heels.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of nerds out there that would spend an insane amount of money just to hang out with.
It's 2 days of LARPing and watching, a bunch of cosplayers pretend to be Rey and these other characters. Like, it's not worth $6,000. It's their own fault for spending $1 billion on this piece of crap. At the end of the day, they should feel bad. Sorry, go ahead, man.
No, that's the other thing, Tom. I don't mean to cut you off, but I don't want to be trapped anywhere where I can't escape with a bunch of blue-haired, shaved head SJW weirdos. Because it's like you go to a Star Trek convention and you get put in a room with all these people. I just have an instant flee response. You know what I mean? So yeah, scary.
But I want to throw this back to Tom, because this is coming on the heels of a lot of austerity measures that Disney is doing, because they announced that they're basically like losing a ton of money. So like they're laying off a bunch of people. Basically Disney Plus is a disaster. They're sunsetting a bunch of content on there. Their franchises are all in the toilet. They've been spending more money on content than they've been pulling in. Their theme park division is the only thing that's kind of been keeping them afloat, but that's all overseas as opposed to domestically. So like, what does this tell you about the overall general health of Disney as a company?
Not good. They're not in a good place right now.
Nope.
They have got to figure out a way to generate some revenue fast. In fact, there's a magic number that keeps popping up, and it's that $3 billion, right? That they, that they seem to have to kind of try and find a way to come up with. And that's probably part of the reason why they're shutting down all these shows on Disney Plus. I think this is one of the few times I'm going to agree with some of the people on that side of the aisle when they're going off on what normally would seem like a conspiracy theory, but they're right. There's no other reason to really take these shows off of Disney Plus unless you're just not wanting to pay residuals. That's really what it boils down to. I don't think there's much they can write off on them, because they don't have to pay anybody then, and they can move them to other places. Like they can sell them to Netflix, or they can move them on ABC on TV or something like that. So I don't think that's not above the realm of possibility. But yeah, that's where Willow and all these shows got taken down, and that's probably the main reason. They are desperate right now, but they're not desperate enough to where they're selling anything yet. That's when you know that they're in real bad shape. When they start, and I'm not talking about any franchises, because they've got tons and tons of like real estate and other things that you have no idea that they're invested in, that they can probably part with or finagle and use to get some money. Their biggest issue they've got going forward is by the end of this year, they've got to come up with, I can't remember the exact amount, but it's quite a bit to pay off Universal for Hulu. That's their big thorn in their side right now, because they don't have the cash, and they're gonna have to figure that out. So Mikey and a few others are thinking they're moving and shaking some things around so they can hopefully get a loan to pay for that by the end of the year.
Yeah. Declan, you're based in the UK. What's the thoughts about like Disney parks over across the pond as opposed to like here? Because I know that recently here in the States, we've had a lot of controversies surrounding like Disney World and stuff like that. But from what I can tell, basically, like the Disney theme parks in Europe and Asia seem to be doing really well. So I was just curious as to like what the perception is from like where you guys are.
I'm not really sure, to be honest, just because I never really hear it get talked about really over here. It's not really something that ever comes up or is like in the news, like especially with the ones in Europe. So I couldn't really say.
Right on. Have you ever been to a Disney World or Disneyland or anything like that?
No, I've never been over to the US or Europe or anything like that. No.
You're not missing out.
No.
Yeah, we're practically down the street from Disneyland, and the last time I was there, I was like, I think once is enough for me. But let's get to some super chats before we move on to our next topic. Mexican Iron Man for $9.99. Ha! First super chat of the show, at least the first Mexican one. P.S. Great show video. Yes. Nerds nodding to Star Trek for 5-6 minutes. Yeah. It's always a good one.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mikey, for that super chat. The Joker's Voice for $10. After the results from Cannes, it's safe to say that S&P was right. Spike the football and take the well-earned victory lap. Hail to the Mangold Slayers. Hashtag talking. Yeah, we're going to talk about that in just a bit. Then we got our super sticker from Gavin Blackburn for 99. I don't even know what you call those.
Those are
primitive. I know that's like a pound symbol, but
Blackburn.
The
99 pence.
Pence. Okay,
Yeah.
99 pence. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I got 99 pence.
And a bitch ain't one. Yes.
There we go.
All right. From the Astro Nerd Boy, resident salty superstar, $5. What? Setting this in the OG era with OG characters? Think of the extra payments Disney would have to make to Lucas for using his characters.
Oh my God, that'd be awful. Yeah.
Yes. Forget about all the money that those characters would bring in to offset that cost. Right?
Terrible.
Yes. And I think that we should donate some of this super chat money to Brian to get a quieter keyboard.
No, I'm sorry.
Clackety clack.
Sorry.
Dennis Wright for $4.99. The first time I wore my salty nerd shirt last week, I was complimented by a dude. LOL. The salty nerd empire has spread to Kansas. Yes.
Nice.
It's slowly spreading like a cancer. It's
my wife and my daughter and my mother-in-law just came back from Kansas last week. They were there for a couple of days, and all I heard was, "It's so flat. Oh my God!" And everybody drives 40 miles per hour. It's ridiculous. I never want to go back. That was exact words from my wife. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, when you go from like Nevada, California, that has mountains and stuff like that, and you go to Kansas where it's just like land. There's like nothing.
Yeah,
It's flat. Bit of a culture shock. Yeah. All right, guys. So let's talk about the thing that's on everyone's minds today, which is the Indy 5 failure.
I was still thinking about Brian's boobs.
Oh, well, everyone thinks about that, but we got to take a break every once in a while. So basically, Indiana Jones 5 premiered at the Cannes Film Festival in France. And the reviews have been coming out, and it is not good, guys. This is turning out to be
like the lukewarm.
Yeah. So I actually wanted to address this because not to humble brag or anything, but I've been to the Cannes Film Festival twice. The first time was in 2004 when I premiered my movie with Jeremy Renner there, and the second time I was there when Revenge of the Sith premiered. And when you see a headline like this where it says gets a lukewarm 5-minute standing ovation, so the same thing happened when I was there and they premiered Revenge of the Sith. Like there was a lot of kind of like hype leading up to that movie that George Lucas got better writers and it was going to be like the best of like the sequel trilogy and all this other stuff. He had rented out like the Queen Mary to like throw all these like, kind of like hypey pre-premiere parties and stuff like that. And I was able to go and watch the Cannes premiere of Revenge of the Sith. And at the beginning of, before the movie started, there was like a lot of excitement in the air and people were really excited to get to see the final chapter of the prequel trilogy and stuff like that. And then by the end of the movie, it was kind of like a Jeb Bush moment. It's like, please clap. And you have like this standing ovation for the movie where it's kind of like a half-assed one where people are like, this is what we're supposed to be doing right now. So we're going to do it just to be respectful. And so like, that's what I read this as, is that the standing ovation that Variety reported about was kind of like, the obligatory standing ovation. Like obviously they gave Harrison Ford a lot of props right up front, but then like as soon as the credit rolled, everyone was like, wow, that was really long and boring and I hated it. So this is Variety. Variety didn't spend a whole lot of time on the movie. They kind of focused mostly on Harrison Ford and his final bow as Indiana Jones. But the stuff that they did talk about with the movie was not very good. So like, I also found it interesting that Disney is developing an Indiana Jones series for Disney Plus that they noted here. And that this movie was not directed by Steven Spielberg, something that James Mangold did not like when I tweeted that little fact. But if we go to the Hollywood Reporter, so the Hollywood Reporter actually did an actual review of the movie. And this review is one of the most scathing reviews I've seen from the Hollywood Reporter for any Disney Lucasfilm project.
Before you get to the review, I just want to say I had heard that, and I could be wrong about this, but somebody had told me that the reason they were probably giving it a 5-minute standing ovation is that at the end of the movie during the credits, it's like a greatest hits of Indiana Jones over the credits. So like, if you ever seen like Freddy's Dead, you know, where they have like all the scenes from all the earlier films and stuff, it's similar to that from what I've heard. So that might even be part of the reason why they were clapping more so. They're like, oh, some scenes from a good movie.
Maybe it's more likely that they were clapping because they could finally leave the theater.
That too.
I read on one of these reviews that a 5-minute standing ovation at the end of basically any movie at Cannes is just kind of a
typical
and an obligatory, hey, good job for making a movie that we can watch.
Well,
and I'm sure the credits were longer than that too, to be honest.
There are
with
certain movies at Cannes that get like a genuine response, but it feels like this was kind of one of their marquee premieres. And so the people in attendance were probably all industry people who just felt the need to do some fan service for Disney. But here's some of the highlights from the actual like Hollywood Reporter review that I wanted to cover. Basically, the movie felt like it was written by committee. The only really good, genuine moment happens about an hour and 20 minutes into the bloated 2.5-hour runtime. The nonstop pacing might sound ideal, but it's mostly an exhausting slog. That means that this is a full-out slaction movie, which are boring action movies. Part of what dims the enjoyment of this concluding chapter is just how glaringly fake so much of it looks. They said that the special effects were just so in your face and not very well done that it took people out of the movie. Another problem was a tendency to overcomplicate everything, and that the climax was kind of messy. Mangold goes
I believe that's a result of reshoots. Sorry, man.
Probably. Mangold goes from one set piece to another without much connective tissue. By that time, you've likely given up following the contorted plot mechanics and just be zoning in and out with each new location. So, like, apparently they jumped to a bunch of locations in the movie just from one set piece to another. I found this line kind of funny. A bunch of outsized CG eels are so sloppily rendered that Disney can relax about any Little Mermaid sniping. Sadly, none of this amounts to much more than a talented director slumming it with mind-numbingly rote video game plotting. Filling in the plucky sidekick spot, Isidore's Teddy is well, let's just say he's no short round, leave it at that. This is a big, bombastic movie that goes through the motions but never finds much joy in the process. Ford often seems disengaged, as if he's weighing up whether this will restore the tarnished luster to this iconic action hero or reveal that he's past his expiration date. Both the actor and the audience get a raw deal with this empty exercise in brand redemption. So, guys, from an industry rag like the Hollywood Reporter, which is usually very shilly, this type of review is so telling. Like this movie was not good. And the fact that the Hollywood Reporter and Variety are reporting on the lack of audience engagement in this thing is very telling. And then we go to the Rotten Tomatoes score. We've got 29 reviews so far. It's at a 52%, so it's rotten. And some of the critics' reviews on this thing, the people who've seen it, are just really, really not complimentary. Now, Primitive, I know that you released a video on your channel this morning about this in particular. It was a very good video. I recommend everyone go check out his channel and watch it. But you read through some of these Rotten Tomato reviews. So, like, what's your take on Indy 5?
It's one of those films I'm not expecting anything out of. I don't think I had any hope for it in the first place. But I think the reviews we've been getting on Rotten Tomatoes, generally, the way you sort of read it is, they'll say it's bad, but I think when they go that route, it's probably means it's even worse. I have got a feeling it's going to be like really a frustrating film to actually get through, just like in terms when it comes to actually breaking it down. I think you're just going to have issue after issue. Even the Hollywood Reporter review, it just seems like, it's just here's a thing, and that seems to be just like the entire movie. Where what you could have done is something like Indy reunites with Short Round or something like that, and I don't know, you go to they go and find Atlantis or something like that, but instead they've went clearly they haven't had a lot of ideas if they've just went for time travel. That's the thing that will get everybody in the doors. But yeah, I don't expect it to be sort of good in the slightest. And you've even had IGN. I'll just pull that up. Even them, like they tend to be, when it comes to a lot of films, they're very positive about stuff. And even IGN is saying we didn't realize how good we had it with Kingdom of Crystal Skull.
Oh my god!
So
What movie is that? I've never seen that movie.
Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't even heard of that movie.
That's
Yeah, but
I just remember something with a fridge. That's about it.
Yeah, but this is coming in. This is the longest Indiana Jones movie ever. It's 2.5 hours long. But people say that basically it gets boring really quick, even though it's nonstop action. Brian from the Popcast.
Yes.
So we're all Indiana Jones fans here.
Yeah.
You would think that a 2.5 hour indie movie would be like a dream come true, but
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
yeah. So what's your take on this? Do you think that this is a pretense to basically a huge failure for Lucasfilm and Disney?
I mean, it's possible, but better question is, is it just boring, or were certain critics and source rumor hunters correct, and Phoebe, whatever Fleabag chick, takes over the role? Like that footage at the end where it's showing, like they said, there's a bunch of footage of his greatest hits, right? Is that showing what someone said months ago, that when that happens, that's because Phoebe Wallace, whatever, Fleabag, is replacing Indiana Jones in all those scenes? I don't know. I read the script. The script, unless they changed it, it's possible, was pretty good. I mean, I saw some like boring stuff in there. Like I feel like they spent a lot of time. It doesn't matter. The script of what I read might not even be the same thing. But I can definitely see it being boring. But the better question, is it boring? And does it tarnish the Indiana Jones franchise, or is it just boring? Like, you can have a speed bump and still make a Disney Plus show. But if they go like full on Fleabagging it, then I think that I think it's over. That's the end of the road.
I wanted to ask Primitive, in the UK, how is Phoebe Waller-Bridge viewed? Like, I know that she's like kind of like this critical darling.
She seems to be one of those. You never really hear people talking about her. She's not really one of those that comes up in a conversation of, into a lot of positive conversation. But I've never seen a Fleabag show. It's like, I think that got awards, but she seems to be someone that, like, you may work for, within something like Fleabag, but other films than that I've seen her in, she's not, she doesn't really have a presence, and she's just not likable either. They've just went and got someone else that isn't really likable, from how I've seen her.
Yeah. Matt Vader 74, you went through my Twitter profile yesterday and gleefully retweeted the tweet that started it all.
I did. Yes.
Do you feel like we've been justified because of this?
So I will feel like we've been justified when the audience score is 52%. Now, I honestly don't think the audience score is ever going to be 52%, because I think the people who are going to bother to write Indiana Jones reviews are going to be people that are going to be shilling the shit out of this movie. That's just the way it is. There was a super chat that we'll get to in a little bit that asked why we're taking the words of a critic so seriously. And it's not that we're really, I don't feel like we're taking the word of the critic so seriously. I just feel like it's pretty sad when the shill media can't shill your movie. You know what I mean? When the movie's so bad that even the people that are on the payroll can't get it into their hands to write that this movie is good.
Well, you're right, man.
So it's just it's an interesting thing, right? I mean, I feel like this thing's probably going to end up like in the 50% for the critics, and it's probably going to be in the mid 70s for the fans. But that's not a good fan score with these kind of movies. The fan score for these kind of movies should be, in the 90s, as far as I'm concerned. And I don't know if it's going to get there. And I can't sit here and judge this movie. I haven't seen it. But
You haven't seen it. Yep.
So I'm not going to give it a score. I'm not going to say, oh, this movie sucks or whatever. But everything that I've heard, read, and seen about this movie so far from this casting is that it's another bloated, a Marvel style CGI crap fest of a movie. It's probably got an hour of bloat. It's probably got stuff that they filmed on that stupid volume, which I'm really beginning to dislike. Indiana Jones movies shouldn't be filled with all of these gross, nasty CGI effects. Indiana Jones movies are practical effects. They're high-speed chases. It's the thing where, in the original movie where they did the scene underneath the truck on the high-speed chase across the desert, that was all practical. That all is real, with some matte paintings in the background. These aren't Indiana Jones movies. And I think that's part of the reason why we didn't like the movie that we don't speak of, because there's too much CGI. There's too much bullshit in this movie. It just seems off. And I'm going to go see this movie, but I'm not going to go see this movie because I want to. I kind of feel like I'm going to go see this movie because I have to at this point. And I don't really feel that way about most movies that come out. I don't want to see old Harrison Ford playing Indiana Jones. I don't want to see Phoebe WallerBridge, doing her thing. I don't want to see these characters go out. My Indy was done when he chose correctly with the cup. I'm kind of sad about the whole thing, to be perfectly honest with you. So,
but there's good news, man. It's not
hashtag not my Indy, I guess is what I'm.
But it's not over yet. You haven't actually seen it. We haven't seen it.
I don't have a lot of faith, man. I don't have a lot of faith.
Sure, that's fine. But to the chat though, make sure don't make a judgment call on something you haven't seen before you've seen it. Now you can have your opinion and be like, hey, it's looking like it's not gonna be good. Yeah. But we don't know yet, man. We know, and you can like it. Maybe it's slow and you like it. Like I said, if it's slow and boring, that's one thing. But if they replace Indy, I don't think anyone can get behind that.
I'll tell you this much before we go to Tom. Directors have a very important role in these movies, and this is the only indie film ever to be not directed by Steven Spielberg. Right. And say what you will about the supposed fourth movie. That was mostly a Lucas thing, but Steven Spielberg as a director is very talented. He kind of has this innate sense of what makes a good story, what makes a fun blockbuster, what makes a popcorn movie. And when you remove him from this equation and you give James Mangold, who's a little bit of a heavier director than Spielberg is, he's not as whimsical, he's not as optimistic, he's not as kind of positive. And you basically give him free reign to make this big tentpole movie as the successor to Spielberg. I think his ego is going to make a 2.5 hour movie that's all about hey, look at all the awesome action scenes I was able to shoot and de-age Harrison Ford on. And in fact, I haven't forgotten that he called me an ageist for pointing out that Harrison Ford was 78 years old in my tweet. And the guy ended up breaking his shoulder, in production and had to be sidelined and ended up costing the movie millions of dollars as they were just sitting there not able to do anything. So Tom Connors, what's your prediction with this movie? Do you think it's going to be another big kerfluffle for Disney?
Well, this is a bit of a different animal. And going off of what Matt was saying earlier, normally we wouldn't be able to trust a critic on these sorts of things, but I think this is comparable to Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. Even the critics knew in that sense they couldn't hedge their reviews bad enough to be this is a bad thing. And then by the end of the show, they're like, yeah, this thing's horrible. I think this is another one of those cases because we know from all the leaks, they've been proven true through all the trailers and everything else. And the reviews have now also solidified those things. So as far as the audience like us, the nerdy nerd fans, we already know what we're getting into. I think the bigger issue here is the general audience. And Indiana Jones is a bit different than Star Wars. There's a little bit of crossover, but you're pretty much looking at that crossover, right? Other than that, Indiana Jones has an audience that's closer to what Top Gun Maverick would have been. So I have a feeling this is going to have a very big opening. It's going to probably open somewhere close to $200 million. Now, is it going to have staying power? I don't think so. Because from everything we've seen, it's basically just Fleabag taking over for Harrison Ford throughout the film. In fact, a lot of the reviews say it feels like that's what it's leading up to, only that's not how it ends. And that to me tells me that's probably how it originally ended. But when they knew they got busted, they went back and reshot it. So at this point, I have zero faith in the film, but I also know how the general public is. So they might get lucky that opening weekend, but I think it's going to fall off a cliff after that.
Yeah, it's kind of weird for me personally because I love Indiana Jones. It's one of my favorite film franchises of all time. I'm a huge Spielberg shill. You know, I grew up watching these adventure movies. They kind of formed my idea of what a good action adventure film is. You know, and I want Indiana Jones 5 to be good, but all the signs are pointing towards it just not being good, right? I can remember when the fourth movie came out, I was so excited to go see it in the theater, and then I walked out of the theater like, what the fuck did I just watch? And so I think a lot of people are looking at Indy 5 from that lens where it's like, well, the fourth one wasn't very good. And the more I learn about this, it's like even like the main MacGuffin, like they pull a bait and switch according to the Hollywood Reporter thing where they're talking about the spear that pierced the side of Christ. And in the movie, they set that up to be like the object that they're going after, but then they switch it to this Dial of Destiny thing, which can track down fissures in time. And I always feel like Indy is at its best when it's dealing with religious mythology as opposed to science fiction stuff. Because it seems more kind of like grounded in humanity, I think, rather than the fantastical. And you know the Raider or the Holy Grail movie. I'm blanking on the name of it. It was Indiana Jones,
Last Crusade.
The Last Crusade. Thank you. Like that movie was such a great ending to the series, right? Like Indy comes to grips with his father. Him and his friends all ride off into the sunset.
Yeah,
it was a beautiful ending for that. And then Crystal Skull comes around and kind of
sculpts it.
Yeah,
sorry,
but at least at the end of that movie, we got Indy marrying Miriam. We have Indy with a son who is set to kind of like take up the mantle of his father. There was a lot of kind of hopeful things in that movie. Apparently, this movie just undoes all that. Indy is like a kind of like a washed up professor. He's divorced. No mention of Mutt whatsoever. Instead, Mutt is replaced by his goddaughter, who's Phoebe WallerBridge. And so like everything I'm seeing from this movie just feels wrong to me. And the idea that it's just one set piece after another seems to track, because I feel like that's kind of like Kathleen Kennedy's thing where she's like, put more action in it, or what have you. And without Spielberg or Lucas there to kind of like collaborate and guide this thing, I just feel like it's going to be a complete mess. Now, Vader, one of your all-time 5-star movies is Raiders of the Lost Ark.
It's my number one movie of all time.
Yeah.
It's my number one movie.
So knowing that this is a film without Spielberg's influence, and this is Kathleen Kennedy's fingers all over it, that we got the egomaniac James Mangold directing this thing, do you have any hope that this is going to bring the franchise that we both love so much to a satisfying end?
No, my Indy finished with Last Crusade, and that's just kind of where I'm going to stick it. I mean, it is what it is, man. I mean, I feel like at the end of this, we're just going to have 2 movies that we never speak of, and we'll call it good. So I just want this cycle to be done and over with. I want us to have some fun with it. It's like I said before, I want this movie. I wanted this movie to be good, right? I have no faith that it is. When the shill media can't even admit that there's good stuff in this, it's telling. It's telling. And that's that, man. And to answer your question, no, I have no faith that this is going to be good. And I'll just stick to the original trilogy, I guess. The original 3 that were the real Indiana Jones movies.
So we kind of talked a little bit about Kathleen Kennedy and her involvement in this. And Tom, there was a rumor here that basically Kathleen Kennedy, she wanted to retire and she was going to wait until Indiana Jones came out and was a huge box office hit and kind of go out on a high note. Do you think that there's any truth to that, or is she still just going to be in there ruining every franchise that Lucasfilm has? Tom, you there?
I'm sorry. What was the question? My bad.
It's okay. So we were talking about Kathleen Kennedy.
Yes.
And basically there was a rumor out there that she was planning to retire as CEO of Lucasfilm after Indiana Jones 5 came out and was a big box office hit. And she was kind of going to go out on top with like this franchise that she'd been a part of since the beginning. But do you think that there's any truth to that rumor? And if this thing bombs, do you think that she'll still retire, or is she just so entrenched in there that she's never going anywhere?
I don't think she's going anywhere until she absolutely has to at this point. She could very well retire after Indiana Jones just because it'd be a button to her career. And I mean, as long as it makes more than probably $500 million at the box office, even though that wouldn't be profitable, she'll probably see that as a win of some sorts. But at the end of the day, why would she? And why would they? I mean, we see the problems. Other people see the problems. But I constantly have to remind people of who Kathleen Kennedy is and how powerful she is. People don't realize that. I mean, Alex Kurtzman's not even on the same map as her as far as power, and we can't even get rid of him. So, like, I mean, and that's the thing. It's just one of those things where they're never going to put her in a position where she's going to look bad. She's going to leave on her own accord. Unless she dies while doing the job, that's the only way it's going to happen, is when she goes out on this high note the way she wants to. Yes, she's been getting a lot of awards and accolades lately, which is kind of a sign that may be something on the horizon, and she's no spring chicken. I mean, just watching the interviews there, I mean...
That's true.
You can see the age starting to show through, and Frank looks like he don't even know where the fuck he's at most of the time there. So, like, at this point, I don't think there's too many years left in her.
That's true. Brian, one of the things that really bothered me when I was watching the movie that shall not be named in the theaters was just how old Harrison Ford felt in that movie. Mm-hmm. Like it felt like it was stretching believability that 60-something-year-old Harrison Ford would be, running around doing all these like fights and adventures and stuff like that. Harrison Ford's now pushing 80 in this movie.
Oh my God.
And apparently he doesn't do anything to hide the fact that he's old in this film. Do you think that that's going to take audiences out a lot of the stuff, just like how old Harrison Ford is? Because we all love Harrison Ford, but at a certain point you have to be like, okay, like, you need to take like a little bit less active of a role.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I remember when we were looking at the behind the scenes photos of the set when they were filming, I saw like 19 stuntmen in the fedora, whatever, and the bomber jacket, and you're like, is that a normal amount of stuntmen for the main character? You got to ask yourself. Like, minimum a baker's dozen, right? I don't think you need that many stuntmen, but you would need that many stuntmen when literally he can't act any of his action sequences. It's got to be someone else. He's old. It's not his fault he's old. It's not ageist to point out that he's old. He's old. That's it. He should be off making Lifetime movies or something dramatic that doesn't require a lot of moving. Not hanging from the back of a car arguing with some British chick about what relic she stole that day. So it's definitely going to feel off, but it felt off with the Crystal Skull too. The one possible redeemer of feeling that in Crystal Skull would have been Mud. But they didn't give him a shot to actually like take center stage. So
also, I think Shia LaBeouf is kind of persona non grata in Hollywood right now.
Yeah, you're right. But even in his own movie, like even in Crystal Skull, they didn't give him a lot of room to to like take the action, to take spotlight. So like, I don't know. They're putting too much. We need him to start doing what Picard does, and Patrick Stewart, and just sort of order other people to do things.
Well, it's not like he can't act. He's still out there if he plays appropriate roles. He's great in that 1923 show.
He is great. He just looks very frail in Indiana Jones. That's all I'm saying.
It's just I don't want to see 80-year-olds swinging on vines and jumping forth between cars and high-speed chases. It's not accurate. It's I can only suspend so much belief, and just it is what it is, man. This movie is it's going to be an experience. I have a feeling, and I guess we'll see where it goes. So.
Like Matt said, 15 years ago, I was already having an issue with Crystal Skull and believing the shit that he was doing, right? Yeah. And I've seen enough of the trailers and clips now to go like, this looks fake as hell. I don't buy it. And the irony of ironies, like Matt said, they even have this big, huge opening sequence, which it's Harrison Ford de-aged through the whole thing. So that even goes to Matt's point that you can't really get away with having a 70-year-old plus guy do this stuff through the whole movie. It's another reason why I have issues with the whole Flash movie too, is like you've got Michael Keaton, who's now 60 plus, and he's moving more fluently than he ever did in the original 1989 Batman. You have the same problem here. You've got Harrison Ford doing shit he could never have done in the earlier films. The appeal of the first 3 films was seeing these set pieces and knowing that these are stuntmen pulling this off, right? Like, that's a real guy being drugged behind that, Jeep or whatever it was in the first movie. And he, those are real explosions. Those are real car crashes. They're really pulling this stuff off. In Crystal Skull in this, it's all CGI bullshit. We know it. And you can't trick us anymore. We've come to a point where we've gotten so attuned to it that unless you really, really try hard, you can't trick the audience anymore. They know it's CGI. It's even movies like Fast and the Furious have gone to the point where they're so off the, to speak of movies that just come out.
Don't get me started on that movie. I went and saw it last night. Primitive. So Lucasfilm has done a great job of taking all of its billion-dollar franchises and kind of running them into the ground. So it starts with Star Wars. Then you had Willow, which they pretty much destroyed. And now you have Indiana Jones. They don't really have anything else now that they've gone through all their 3 big franchises. But one of the things that I found interesting was this idea that they're developing a Indiana Jones show for Disney Plus. Now, Harrison Ford has been very public about him not wanting anyone else to play the role. So there's been speculation that it's going to be about his mentor Ravenwood, Miriam's father, or something along those lines. So I want to get your take on this. Like, if Lucasfilm does choose to go forward with an Indiana Jones show for Disney Plus, how do you think that the performance of
I thought that already got crap. I thought that already got canned.
It mentioned it in the Hollywood Reporter article, so obviously there's still some movement on it.
I did think that, did it not come out that Bob Iger told Lucasfilm just to focus on Star Wars? That's why I thought that show wasn't going to happen anyway, the Indiana Jones show, because I'm pretty sure that did come out.
I do remember hearing something like that, yeah.
But yeah, again, it's. I think it's pretty obvious the way most of these Disney Plus shows are going to go. So, I wouldn't really expect it to do well, even if people respond to this film well. I don't really necessarily think it's going to sort of translate into like a Disney Plus show. I don't expect a Disney Plus show to be any good anyway. So, but. Yeah, it would be interesting if they do decide to do it anyway, but I wouldn't expect anything out of it.
All right. Well, before we move on to talking about other Disney Plus stuff, let's hit up some super chats real quick. We got a super chat from Dennis Wright for $19.99. Wrong one.
What? Oh, shit. There you go.
All right. Dennis Wright for $19.99. Okay, got to defend Kansas. Far West Kansas is flat like the reaction to the new Indiana Jones movie. Eastern Kansas is hilly and has actual trees, a lot of deer and coyotes. Wish we had buffalo everywhere, but only in limited areas. Then
Flat.
we've got flat. We've got I'm just gonna do it. We got Channel Starface for $5. Why are you guys, and me too for that matter, taking these reviews more seriously than other critic reviews
We're
for
not.
past movies? We're really not. Like, the thing that surprises us about these critic reviews, at least I'm speaking for myself, is that the access media, especially these industry things like Variety and Hollywood Reporter, they are not in the business of being critical of major studio tentpole movies. And when they come out en masse and unanimously report negative aspects of a major blockbuster tentpole film, summer film, especially from a legacy franchise like something like Indiana Jones, when that happens, it's so counter to the normal behavior of these media outlets, because they're all in bed together, right? Like, they're in the business of propping up bullshit. Like, we've seen it time and time again with Star Wars. How many of these access media outlets have propped up bad Star Wars because they're in the pocket of Disney and Lucasfilm and all this stuff? And for them to come out and report on the lacklusterness of the new Indiana Jones 5 movie, like, especially like when they're extolling like Phoebe Waller-Bridge and feminism and all this stuff, that tells us something, right? Like, it's not so much that the reviews for Indiana Jones are bad. It's that the people who are saying it's bad aren't in the business of doing that. And that tells us a lot of stuff. Tom, what do you think that signals?
When the media can't even hide this crap?
Yeah.
Or, well, and like I said, that's more like the Lord of the Rings thing. They can't even hedge it because they know they're going to get called out on it. There's only so long you can say, it's like you take a bite of something and it's spoiled or not any good, and you're like, oh, this is wonderful, this is great, here, have some. There's only so many people you can say that to before somebody goes, this tastes like ass, man.
Yeah.
And eventually they're going to call you out on your BS. And I mean, this is another one of those. What's funny about this is I'm sitting kicking back and looking at this Indiana Jones thing, and one of my more popular tweets in the last few months has been that when Ke Huy Quan won the Academy Award, and him and Harrison Ford were embraced in a hug, and I said, this is what Indiana Jones 5 should have been, and really, that's what everybody wants, is him and like Sala or somebody like that to be on one final adventure. We don't care about any new characters. We don't need new diversity hire kid. We don't need Fleabag, because she's actually some grandkid or daughter of some character we've never even met before who's in the intro, right? So again, no real reason for them to be there. They have no attachment to, and we were actually under the impression that they were related to Marcus from before, but that turned out not to be the case. And so here we are with two characters we don't give a crap about, and they could have been two that we do care about. At the end of the day, nothing about this movie sounds like it's any good. So even the critics can't, through the diversity points that it has, they can't even give it a good rating. That should tell you something.
I mean, this is an industry that still has Obi-Wan Kenobi at 82%.
Right. That's my point. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, so Channel Starface, that's one of the reasons why we're taking these reviews a little bit more seriously, is because it seems like for once the access media is actually being honest about one of these Disney Lucasfilm films instead of running cover for them. Real quick, Dustin Cole for $10. They should have done the Fountain of Youth and just replaced Harrison Ford with a younger actor at the end of the movie. But oh no, we have to be progressive and have a woke woman, so there's no hope. That's actually a pretty good idea. I know Anthony Ingruber does a great Harrison Ford impression.
He's half right, he's half wrong. Nobody can play Indy but Harrison Ford. Let it go.
Yeah.
Let it go.
No, Sean Patrick Flannery did a pretty good job in Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
Let it go.
All right, and we got Sailor Mercury for $2. Indy 5 equals Ant-Man 3. So bad, even the shills hate it. Disney has been
there's another example. Yeah.
Disney has been on a pretty bad losing streak. Wouldn't you say, Primitive, with like their latest releases?
Yeah. It just seems, every other week there's always just some bad news going on over there. Because I did record a video earlier to do with them, getting rid of all this content. It's just, and even the like last week they were getting sued for like misleading investors. There's always just something going wrong with it.
And speaking of getting rid of content, that leads us to our next topic, which is the Disney Plus purge of a lot of their content. This is news that just kind of came out on the heels of their austerity measures. So basically, the Disney Plus Hulu purge has begun. This is from Vulture, and just wanted to read this real quick. So, Bob Iger, he created Disney Plus before he supposedly retired. But as recently as 2002, Iger told the New York Times that while their previous licensing deals with companies like Netflix did a brilliant job, he later realized that Disney was basically selling nuclear weapons technology to a third world country, and now they're using it against us. It led Disney to wean themselves off all other licensing, but these current removals underscore that nothing is forever, especially in streaming. A really interesting article was here in Deadline. So just a quick rundown of the stuff that is going to be pulled off of Disney Plus. We got Willow, Big Shot, Turner and Hooch, The Mighty Ducks Game Changers, Just Beyond, Diary of a Future President, The Mysterious Benedict Society, The World According to Jeff Goldblum, and Hulu's Why the Last Man, Dollface, The Hot Zone, Maggie, Pistol, and The Little Demon. Now, of those series that are getting pulled, Willow and Why the Last Man were kind of like the most like big budget, in your face, tentpole.
Did you see the updated list? There was actually a lot more than that, Matt.
Yeah. There's
Turner and Hooch and a few other bigger ones. There's a few other bigger ones added.
No. This was the updated one with Turner and Hooch and stuff like that. But the point I was trying to make is that Willow and Why the Last Man were huge flops for FX and Disney Plus, simply because they went so radically woke. And one of the interesting things I saw in this Deadline article was that this move comes down to a content impairment charge of $1.5 billion to $1.8 billion. Now, what's a content impairment charge? Content impairment charge is basically a process used by businesses to write off worthless goodwill. These are assets whose value drops or is lost completely, rendering them completely worthless. So basically, Disney has taken this content off to write off $1.5 to $1.8 billion, similar to how when Zaslav came in and took over Warner Brothers, he scrapped a bunch of stuff in order to get like a tax write-off. Now, it's not clear that this is going to be like a tax write-off similar to that, but basically what Disney's doing is they're trying to take this content that was more expensive for them to keep up and produce, and find a way to try to write it to basically recuperate some of the money that it's costing them. And it's kind of interesting because basically, like, we had these numbers that came out and talked about how Disney Plus had lost subscribers. It's like a huge black hole of money for Disney, and it's just not a healthy thing for the company. And so they're trying to figure out how to make it work. And the first step is to basically take off all these underperforming shows. Now, Tom Connors, can you explain to us a little bit about how, like, the content licensing and the costs associated with that work for these shows, and why you might be doing this?
Yeah, this is kind of what I was referring to earlier. You like, there's a bit that can be saved by writing these down. As you said, they're making them out to be worthless, meaning nobody watched them and they didn't do anything for their service. But the other stuff, the ancillary costs they'd have to have if they did keep them up, let's say, is they have to pay all the residuals to all the directors, writers, actors, anybody who has it in their contract, and whatever amount they have in their contract, as long as they're up there. So taking them down is going to save them money, directly, so they don't have to pay out all these ancillary costs. Plus, even the subtle things like storage fee on the server if they don't have their own server farm, for instance, and such. And it makes room for other things that people are watching and that can be considered profitable. But the streaming model is such a crapshoot, and how it works, and that's what part of the writing strike is about right now. On top of the upcoming strikes, is because they're not really transparent with their numbers and how this works, and that's where it's like these flat rates, I think, is what a lot of them are getting now. Anyway, so that's basically what, as far as I can tell, they're cutting them kind of overhead costs at the same time, while also probably writing these off as failures as a business.
Now, Brian from the Popcast, or I don't know if he's there. You there, Brian?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry, I had my mic off and I was reaching over to get it. Sorry.
It's okay. So I found this tweet from Matthew Buck on Twitter. Matthew Buck is a great YouTube creator. He runs a great channel called Film Brain. And I thought that this was a very interesting tweet thread that he did. He says, "It is bad when Warner Brothers does it. It is bad when Disney does it. Stop taking content away. Some very high-profile removers here too, like Willow. And I bet the whole thing ties back to the fact that they likely don't want to pay residuals on lesser performing content. And it costs more to keep it around than to junk it.
Yeah,
Soulless,
that's what I was
heartless,
saying.
ignorant, short-sighted, and culturally bankrupt. This loophole needs to be sealed up. The active destruction by streamers of their own content, something even the worst doomsayers about the streaming bubble would never have even dreamed, will be looked back upon with as much shame as tape wiping, mark my words. Seeing a lot of people go, oh, well, if it was that important to buy it, buy it physically, which ignores the fact that these titles made for streaming were never actually made available to buy on physical media. It also puts the onus on previous customers rather than companies.
Preservation.
Yeah. So
Well, and he's not wrong, but at the same time, there shouldn't be an excuse made for woke bad content, right? Like, I mean, that's what he's kind of ignoring.
Let's say he liked it, though, right? Let's just talk about the physical media aspect. The fact that there is no physical media being sold for that, it only increases piracy, number one. But number two, like, even if you bought the digital copies, let's say you bought the digital copies on Amazon or whatever, or Vudu or whatever, when they go down off Disney, like, do you lose access to it? Because
no, those are exclusive to Disney, so you can't buy them on demand. That's kind of the point.
Okay, so you couldn't buy them on demand. But it still ties back to the same argument. Like, the problem with lacking physical media is that these businesses at any moment can just rip the cord. I have a lot of media on Amazon Prime. Every movie that you would rent, I just spend the extra couple bucks and buy it, right? And the thing is, the other day, I remember actually going in there. I'm looking for, I think it was Always Sunny in Philadelphia. And there are episodes missing from my 13 seasons of Always Sunny. Mm-hmm. Because they decided that those episodes are no longer proper. They're not proper. They push the envelope a little too far, and they're problematic. And so they removed them from their catalog. Did they warn all the people that purchased them? No. When you complain about it, they say, well, you don't actually own it. You just pay for the ability to, it's like a lease. And at any moment, they can just rip it out. Now, I did get a refund, but it took me like 4 hours of complaining to 3 different people to get my refund. Most people are not going to do that. Most people are just going to be like, oh, I guess I just don't have those episodes
technically
anymore.
don't have to give you shit. Because what that is, if you read the fine print, and somebody took them to court and lost, last I knew, over this, it's just a long-term rental. I agree, it should be on physical media, but the problem you also face here is they wouldn't have made any money on the physical media of these either. Nobody would have bought them. That's kind of the problem you have, is that it's junk that nobody watched. It's sad to say. Now, should they deserve some kind of physical media release or even a digital media release? They might get them. That's the thing a lot of people are overlooking, is the reason they're pulling them, unless they have to keep them out of circulation to write them down on the taxes, which is like the Batgirl situation, they can now farm these out to other places. It's not like they're probably going to go away. They're just going to be, like I said, on Hulu or Vudu, or Amazon might even pick them up, or Netflix might even pick them up. Because that's what they're doing now. That's kind of how the streaming war is ending. It's basically everybody's one big circle jerk now. They're just buying each other's crap. Because Paramount, HBO, they've all learned we can't be exclusive or we're not going to make any money. Because that, at the end of the day, is what made the whole streaming thing profitable, is when you only have Netflix as a streaming service and they're paying all the studios these huge fees for their movies. That's why they were making bank. But when you're making the movies and putting them on your own service, you're also in charge of all the overhead that goes with that. So you're not making any money at the end of the day.
Yeah, you're also completely in charge of the risk. Like,
exactly,
all the risk is on you now. There's no backup. There's no partner. You know what's interesting is this. what you said about circle jerking, right? And so they're going to be selling their media back and forth to each other. I noticed that True Lies is now available for to stream or buy digitally. And for the longest time, True Lies was not available in any form, including Blu-ray, DVD, whatever.
Yeah.
Because of I guess the
insensitivity.
And no, it wasn't that. It was actually who directed that? It was
James Cameron.
James Cameron had an argument with the distributor of that movie, and so he decided just to not sign an agreement. So there was no distribution for True Lies.
I don't know if that's true. Basically, it works like this. James Cameron has distribution sign off on all of his films except for Titanic and Terminator, as far as I know. And they even still give him that carte blanche with Titanic.
So he just decided not to release that
what
one
it is
movie.
It boiled? No, he hasn't. There's people griping because he has not remastered Aliens yet. They're waiting for The Abyss to come out.
I'm not asking for remaster. There's no DVD
point,
or
Brian.
Blu-ray of it, though.
That's my point, Brian. You're not listening to me.
Sorry.
They can only legally release, due to their contracts, the last version that Cameron signed off on. And since he's been dicking around with the Titanic and dicking around with Avatar, he can't take 2 hours to go watch his movie and go, yeah, it looks good, or fix this.
Right.
I'm not kidding. That's what it boils down to, Brian. That's why we've been waiting 20 freaking years to get Abyss on Blu-ray, and we're finally going to get it this year because James Cameron just didn't bother to take 3 hours to go, okay, it looks good, and sign off on it. That's really what it boils down to. Is and then when he does, we get shit like Terminator 2 4K, and it looks like somebody smudged shit all over the screen because he completely scrubbed the grain out of it. And I have a feeling that's exactly what he's going to do to Aliens if he ever gets around to it, too.
I don't know. What is it? What do some of these directors have, like, this is aversion to film grain? It's part of the medium.
I don't
What's the
understand
issue?
it either. Peter Jackson's another one, too. I don't get it. It's where you got the other opposite end where it's like Tarantino, where they refuse to shoot on digital because they want that film look.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's dirty
Real
as hell.
quick, we got a super.
Sorry, I had to
Culture
go on a
Casino.
tangent there.
No, that's good.
That's fine, Tom. Culture Casino for $1.99. If they take the right down, it's gone forever. So that's a good point. Is that if they take a tax write-off on these things,
That's
then
what
they
I was
can
saying.
never release them again. Primitive,
that's too bad.
You mentioned that you had a video on this very subject coming out. What are your thoughts on Disney Plus basically sunsetting a lot of these underperforming shows?
It's not really surprising, to be honest, because, well, from what I've read, it's essentially so they don't have to pay residuals and things like that. And I guess they can put it on, like, other streaming, like, whether it's like your Rokus and all that sort of stuff. So then you'd actually make ad revenue, I guess, if people watch it or something like that. But, I can't really have a lot of sympathy for, because we've seen, like, the Willow writer kind of, saying it's absolutely cruel, and it's just like, well, you didn't really put much effort into this show. But, to that super chat there about, the show disappearing forever, I've got all the reviews of it on my channel, so it's always going to live on there, just me bashing the show.
I got copies of it too.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like I said, every other week it's something where they're trying to have to do something to save money, and it's just they've just kind of done it themselves, just with the low quality shows that aren't driving subscriber growth. So it's something it's not really surprising at this point.
Yeah, Matt Vader 74.
Yeah.
I'm going through this list of the shows that they're sunsetting, and it's kind of funny. Like, I can remember back during the lockdowns when all these studios were putting out this stuff, and we were seeing commercials and trailers for Turner and Hooch and the Mighty Ducks Game Changers and all this other stuff, and all these like really dumb sounding bad movies and TV shows that nobody watched are part of this. Nobody's gonna miss this shit when it's gone, really.
Right.
It's like you guys are all like sitting here talking about physical media and all this kind of thing, and all I'm sitting here is like, I'm not gonna buy this shit on physical media anyway. Don't care.
Yeah.
I don't need historical posterity for a Turner and Hooch television remake. No, sorry. I'm I watched 2 episodes of Willow. It's trash. It's absolute garbage. For a brief 5 seconds, I thought to myself, it's going away in a couple of days. Maybe I should just like bite the bullet and watch the whole series. And then it kind of it went away. It's gone. I don't have any interest in watching that either. Good riddance. Good for Disney for saving some money. Who gives a shit? Okay. None of this stuff that they're getting rid of is anything people watched, with the exception of Willow a little bit for the woke freakos out there who thought they had a duty to go watch it. Don't care. And good riddance to this terrible content. And maybe all the other streamers need to go out and purge their systems of all the terrible woke bullshit that they put out there as well. So yeah, that's my take.
Well, if they did that, they'd have zero content.
Exactly.
They wouldn't matter. You know what? And just to play devil's advocate real quick, there are people though, like for us, like who gives a shit? Like I don't really care about Willow. Well, I care about Willow. I don't care about this Willow. But there are people out there that do genuinely love this stuff, right? So for them, there are people that are. Am I too loud? I just saw my chat.
You're a little loud, but it's all right.
You're all right.
Oh, I apologize.
I'd cry tears for those people.
No,
I understand. And Brian's right. They should have made these available on media in some way, shape, or form. As a media fan, I do agree with that. But at the same time, a lot of these shows that are on this list, they've been sitting on Disney Plus with only 1 season and canceled anyway. Turner and Hooch is one of them, for instance. And that was one of the few that actually got that wasn't woke from what I had heard. It was actually a backdoor sequel to the original film, even though Disney wanted a remake. The creator found a way to make it and fit in all the diversity points and actually kind of did a little FU to them, because the character that they had them bring in, they're like, well, can I make them pregnant? And they're like, sure, we love that idea. Little did they know that by doing that, they were end up going to write them out of most of the season because they'd be basically
awesome.
pregnant. Yeah, so like there's little things like that. And the first season of Mighty Ducks was great. The second season I haven't seen because they got rid of Emilio Estevez, so I don't even know if anybody watched that. And that, I believe, got canceled too. Another point, a lot of these shows were already canceled.
Oh my god, there was a new Mighty Ducks?
Exactly, yeah. The first season wasn't even half bad. And then they got rid of him because he refused to get the vax, so they refused to have him back for the second season, and they wrote him out.
Is it off the platform? Did I miss that?
Now it's off the platform now.
Oh, son of a bit.
It's going off the platform, Brian.
Oh, so it's not gone yet.
The first season is the only thing worth a crap, and it kind of leaves with a hanging note. And I didn't watch the second season, so I don't even know how they resolve it, Brian. I just refuse to watch it because he's not in it.
I just like Estevez, so.
Yeah, and the first season was halfway decent. Sure, there's some woke elements to it, but for the most part, it was just basically, getting to see some of the kids grown up, and there's a new generation, and how they got Bombay involved and all that kind of stuff, and what he's been up to since the last 3 movies.
That's rad.
Yeah, but they just kind of went out the window and they decided not to bring him back.
All right, real quick, we got some super chats here from the Astro Nerd Boy for $5. I've said this before, but Disney seems to be leaving a lot of money on the table by not putting shows on Blu-ray for collectors to buy. Then we got another $5 super chat. I'd buy Mando season 1 and 2 on Blu-ray disc, and I'm looking forward to getting Picard season 3 on Blu-ray as Paramount puts their stuff on physical media. Brian, that's true. Paramount seems to be one of those studios that actually still likes to sell physical media, don't they?
Yeah. No, and look at this, man.
It's because they need money.
No, I mean, I don't know if this is where you get money from, because
that goes towards them.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. Someone said that they said, all right, so you got for the latest Star Trek series, you got a vinyl record. And I was like, yes. He goes, you don't see it weird? It's a little ironic there, right? Yeah, here's the deal. They sell physical media because they have customers that want it. And even if they don't like a season of television, they might get the entire box set just to have it. Like, I have all 3 of the JJ movies, and I really only like the first one. But I'm a physical media collector, and I like Star Trek. Now, am I buying Star Trek Discovery? No. But I'll buy Picard. If there's a box set for Picard, I'll buy Picard for sure. Depending on how Strange New World goes this season, I might buy that too. The first season wasn't bad. So, as a fan of the the IP and a fan of hard media, if it's coming in a steel box and I'm mildly interested, I'm buying it.
Simp.
I mean, I'm a Picard season 3 simp. Seasons 1 and 2 were garbage.
Oh, I just see a bunch of stuff in Brian's background and in my background, and probably everybody else is in the chats here too.
Right.
That some relative we don't like is going to take all that crap to the pawn shop or something in 50 years and get $12 for it.
Yeah,
and you know.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Kid's smart. He can make a lot of money out of the crap I got here.
Yeah.
Listen, bro, I got like 150 steelbooks up here, and steelbooks don't lose value like regular ones do. So
it's okay.
He's not totally wrong.
Speaking of losing value, let's talk about Zack Snyder and how he's bashing critics of Batman versus Superman. We've been longtime critics of Zack Snyder here on the Solid Unit podcast. At least I have, and he is. Recently came out in an interview and said this: "I think that probably is what caused the movie to be so polarizing," Snyder said. "I feel like a lot of people went into the movie going, oh, it's the superhero romp, right? Let's have fun with it. But we gave them a sort of hardcore deconstructivist, heavily layered, experimental, modern mythological superhero movie that you really need to pay attention to. Was that not cool for them? Or that was not cool for them. That's not something anyone wanted to do. They were like, what? No, that's exhausting. Why do they fight at night? I hate that." And
what the?
And so, like, guys, like, so I've been very on the record about my dislike for Zack Snyder in terms of like his storytelling ability. Like, he's a great visualist, but as a filmmaker and as a storyteller, he's absolute garbage. And I can remember going to see Batman versus Superman in the theater. I was really excited about it. And it was the most convoluted, heavy-handed plot. Like, all you needed to make that movie work was have Batman be the antagonist, Superman be the protagonist, and have them keep butting up against each other and culminating in a final fight where they eventually work out their differences and decide to like team up. You didn't need all the Lex Luthor BS. You didn't need all the other stuff in there. You just needed Batman versus Superman. So like Snyder has a very bad habit of making things way more complicated than they need to be in terms of like a narrative perspective. But the ego on this guy is what really drives me nuts, because he's one of those guys who's like, my poop don't stink, right?
He sounds like his fans, actually. That's what bothers me.
Well, and you know, like a lot of it came out after the Snyder Cut got released, that, you know, his marketing, his PR firm that he contracts with, used a lot of bots to generate false support for the releasing of the Snyder Cut. And I feel like this guy is just a manipulative jerk, really. But this type of stuff where basically if you didn't get Batman versus Superman, you're an idiot. You know, like that's basically what he's saying in this interview. Matt Vader 74. What's your take on this?
I don't know if I even have a take. I didn't mind Zack Snyder's Justice League movie, the one that he remade and they released as a miniseries or whatever. I actually really kind of like that. I like 300. I like his weird zombie movie. Does he have an ego? Yeah, he has an ego. But I haven't met a filmmaker yet that doesn't have an ego, including the one over here next to me. Yeah. So it's just more, seems like par for the course to me. I mean, you got to have an ego to be in this business, right? So he's just gonna talk shit and be Zack Snyder. You either love him or you hate him. I honestly, I don't know where I sit. I sit.
There are filmmakers.
I'm on either side of the fence depending on how I wake up each morning. So when it comes to Zack Snyder, so
there are filmmakers who have an ego, who deserve the ego.
Okay,
they make good stuff.
No, here we go again.
Filmmakers who have the ego, who don't deserve it, like James Mangold, for instance. Brian from the Popcast.
Yes.
What do you think? Like, so you're our resident DC expert, right? You run a DC channel. No one did more damage to the DCEU than Zack Snyder, in my opinion. And Batman versus Superman was just a mess. In fact, even when they released the extended edition, which made the story make more sense, it was still a mess. So, what's your take on this? Do you think that Zack Snyder's just trying to rewrite history here?
Oh, first off, I think you're wrong. I do. You're right. The movie was a mess, but Zack Snyder is not the person who did all the damage to DC. The studio and their extremely horrible management of their properties and their IPs, their mistrust of every single creator, and the fact that they had like 55 executives running the same branch, and they ran like psyops on their own IP just because they didn't like people. They damaged DC beyond any measure. Zack Snyder is a creative that obviously made mistakes, and not everything Zack Snyder makes is good. But he is not the one, I don't think, that damaged the DC brand. Thank God for David Zaslav, the Zaslav, coming in here and actually like cleaning house, because there was no other way you could have gotten this DC train back on track, because it was just entirely broken with 15 people making decisions that were all contrary to each other. Now, that said, I do think Zack Snyder is a narcissist. But I think that Vader's right, and I think that you got to have a little bit of narcissism to do this job.
Vader's always right.
You got to have a little narcissism. You got to be full of yourself a little bit to be able to be a writer, director, creative, showrunner, whatever. I know showrunners, and like, you know, base level, they're great guys, but like you get them going, and like, wow, I almost forgot he's sort of an asshole, and that's just sort of the way. That's just the way they are. But that said, yeah, you're right. He doesn't make, not everything. Like, listen, I will hand to God, Man of Steel is one of my favorite all time movies. And Zack Snyder's Justice League is absolutely outstanding. It's on my top 10 easily. But BVS, the studio wanted one thing, Snyder wanted to do something else, and he tried to like fake. Like, you try to like fake him out. It didn't work. And then the unfortunate stuff with Justice League, and he wasn't able to finish his fake out. That's what it was. He was like, I'm gonna fake him out. I'm gonna get Batman in there, but don't worry, I'll clean it up with Justice League. But then his kid died or whatever, and he had to leave, so he couldn't finish the fake out. So I don't think he's the one that damaged it, and I think that I don't like it when directors bash critics. Like, that's their job. Like, their job is to criticize your work. Instead of bashing a critic, maybe, unless they're being assholes, but maybe you should just be better at it, you know? Take their information, even if it's bad, but like, take all information and apply it to yourself and try to become the best version of yourself.
Well,
but
I'd go so far as to say he wasn't bashing critics, he was bashing audiences, because basically the critics were just reflecting what the audiences were saying about this movie.
Since when do critics reflect audience, though? Have you seen a Rotten Tomato score?
Well, he's not talking about professional critics. He's talking about just critics in general of the movie.
I see.
Which includes audiences. Now, Primitive Ramblings, this is your first time on our show. I don't know how you feel about Zack Snyder or the DCEU. So why don't you give us your take on this? Do you think Zack Snyder is right in criticizing people who didn't like Batman versus Superman?
No, it just seems a bit in denial to me. You know, to say, oh no, you just didn't like it because you didn't pay attention. It's like, the reason people didn't like it because they paid attention. You know, because I remember going to see the BVS when it came out, and it just, even watching it in the cinema, it was just, scene, like every 30 seconds. Nothing really connected to each other. I think the only film of Zack Snyder's that I like is probably 300. That's about it. That's really all I can think of out of all of his films that I've seen. Is 300 is really the only one that stands out.
Yeah, 300 is real stylistic. That's a lot of people like that because it was such a fresh style. But like, I think that same movie introduced today, now that people are used to this style, I don't think it does it very good.
The thing about 300 is, like, number one, it was based off of a Frank Miller comic, who's a much better writer than Zack Snyder. If you want to get a real sense of Zack Snyder's talent, you look at something like Sucker Punch, which he came up with the idea, he wrote the script, he filmed the movie, and Sucker Punch is an abysmal film. It's in the
similar style. So you're right, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's Zack Snyder's style. Anything that he's done that's been somewhat good basically had source material that started off pretty good. So, like, I don't know, like, Tom, you know, I have dealt with the Snyder cult for a number of years
As
now,
have I.
just because I've been critical of him on Twitter and like they've come after me and stuff like that. And so like I can imagine that when you have that hardcore of a fan base, you know, like you feel justified in basically like, you know, calling your audience like idiots who didn't get his deep superhero film. And this is the same guy who said he wanted to have Batman raped in prison and stuff like that. So what's your take on this? Like, do you think that Batman versus Superman gets a bad rap, or is Snyder just
hell
a
no.
complete idiot?
He's being a complete idiot. In fact, like you just said it yourself, Matt, anytime, you know, when I had any of my scoops in the last few months about what was going on over at Warner Brothers, and especially if it was anything that was remotely sounding like Snyder was not coming back or having anything to go forward, or even his stuff was going to be erased in some way, the amount of crap that I would get on Twitter and in the comments, I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
They just come after you like piranhas. And you're right. You pointed it out exactly, Matt. Part of the problem here is his firm that he had working with all the bots and stuff, because a lot of the Snyder fans like to try and pretend that the Snyder cult is a lot bigger than they are. That's the problem. Here's the plain facts. What Matt said is true. What is also true is over 60% of the people that started watching the Snyder Cut on HBO Max turned it off before they finished it. That means that most people never even finished watching it. It was so boring. The movies were disasters. BVS was considered a flop. Justice League was even considered more of a flop, regardless of how you feel of, you know, Joss Whedon taking that movie over or not. Joss Whedon was part of the process before he even took over, because they were already having problems because of the reception to Batman v Superman, which was also a result of the reception of Man of Steel, which at the end of the day, Man of Steel was 100% Zack Snyder's vision. So this all boils down to the fact that the guy does not understand superheroes, and he's trying to call us stupid because we didn't understand his stupid movie. Now, I'll be the first one to say, look, it's a comic book movie. It's about a guy who flies around in tights and a dude who goes out at night dressed like a bat and rides around in a fancy car and has gadgets. I get it. Sometimes you have to turn your brain off and go, it's just a movie, stupid. But sometimes, just sometimes, it's also just a stupid fucking movie, and we have to call it out. And Matt's 100% right. This was the easiest job in Hollywood anybody could have ever been given. All you got to do is make a Batman v Superman movie. That's it. And like Matt said, it's easy as hell to do. You can even include Lex Luthor. You can even make him a part of the reason why they're fighting, because he's manipulating Bruce Wayne in the background, right? And then that's when Bruce finally realizes, oh, I'm being played. I need to team up with this super guy instead against Lex Luthor and whatever he's done. That's how easy it is. Zach tries to think that he is so fucking cool and so edgy and dark, and if you don't get it, you don't like it, you just don't get it. No, it's fucking stupid and pretentious. And just like everybody else here on the panel has pointed out, unless he has something pre-written for him by somebody who's actually a decent writer, James Gunn, then you can't make a decent movie. Okay, he even screwed up one of the easiest movies in history with Batman v Superman. How do you do that? How? There's 120,000 comics about Batman v Superman. Pick one.
There's a lot of source material for that. No, you're totally right. And the Martha thing, I remember the audience groaning.
Yeah, I was going to point that out, Brian. Like this is the same filmmaker who gave us "Why did you say that name?" a meme.
Yeah, why'd you say that name?
Why did you say that name? So like the whole Martha thing, that was Zack Snyder, and basically he cribbed the final battle directly from the Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah,
right?
Frank Miller, right?
Yeah. So like he did have a source material to work with, but he had to like figure out how to take it out of the Dark Knight Returns storyline and jam it into something that he was trying to make for the DCEU, and it just didn't work. Right, like the whole thing with Batman is like, if there's even a 1% chance that he's our enemy, we have to take him down. It's like, wait, what? Like that doesn't make any sense.
I mean, no, that part makes sense.
No, it doesn't.
He's a god.
it makes sense for Batman to have some sort of backup plan. But
Yeah.
the problem goes with, first of all, you've got this whole convoluted thing in the earlier part with Wonder Woman. She shouldn't even be there. It's over a picture that's on his disk drive. Guess what?
Yeah.
If the picture's on a disk drive, there's probably 20,000 other copies, lady. You're not getting the only copy there. So let's not even get to how stupid that is and convoluted.
Yeah.
Here's how stupid the movie ends. You've got Superman going, we need to talk. And he pushes Batman instead of talking. Right? At any time, the motherfucker could just flew up 12 feet and go, stop. We need to talk. He's got my mother. You know, we get the whole point of the Martha thing. The problem with it was executed stupid.
It was like both people were. It was like they both just lost brain cells for that moment. And Batman's supposed to be like the smartest detective on the planet, and he can't put two and two together for 5 minutes. And then also Superman can't just stop. He is a god. He is a god. He doesn't have to actually fight. He could just be like, wait, oh, dude. They got my mom.
Hold up. They got my mom, dude.
Wait, we're forgetting the fact that in the last 10 minutes, they shoehorn in the Doomsday Death of Superman story.
Yeah, let's not even get me started on that crap. One of the most overrated moments in comic book history, kids. It was meant as a holdover. It was never meant to stick. It was never meant to be anything more than just, we got to waste some time.
I still love that book. I have that book. Death of Superman's a great book.
It's all right, but it's overrated as hell.
I mean, it's overrated because all the normies got it, but it's a good book, bro.
But you take that entire thing, which could have been a movie in and of itself, and you put it into 10 minutes.
Bingo.
Of a 2.5 hour.
That's my bigger gripe too.
That's
agree.
the biggest problem. You took an entire book and you crammed it into 10 minutes and you ruined the character forever.
You don't get it. You don't get how deep it is, right?
I only have one wish in life right now. And I really wish to God Tom would turn his fucking camera on when he gets so heated. Because I want to see purple Tom. I really do. So, yeah.
You'll just see my head explode eventually.
I know. It would be so awesome. It would be amazing. Yeah.
It's like scanners.
I'm glad you guys are so passionate about
scanners.
Zack Snyder.
Real quick, the Astro Nerd Boy for $10. Batman vs. Superman suffered from Warner desperately trying to catch up with Marvel. Doomsday shouldn't have been in it, and the resolution of Batman and Superman's conflict is convoluted. Snyderverse had potential. I'll agree with you, Astro Nerd Boy. I feel like the Snyderverse did have potential, and I'm kind of sad to see that James Gunn is kind of like abandoning it, where he could have righted the ship and fixed what wasn't working. But, I mean, the issue is that whole strategy, I think, was thought up by Zack Snyder, where it's like, instead of slowly building up to the crossover, we'll just start with the crossover and then go out into individual stuff. And that doesn't give fans a time to like get to know the characters, like, create anticipation for like the big threat that they're going to be facing. And now we're just left with like a big set of blue balls, because we're never going to know how any of that stuff is resolved.
But to be fair though, Matt, that wasn't Snyder that made those choices. That was the studio. The studio made the choices to rush it because they. What's that?
I'm sure he had some input into it.
No, they were trying to rush to Justice League to have their own Avengers. Like, that's what they wanted, and so they rushed it. Yeah, you're right. They should have fleshed out every character individually. The template was there. Like, Marvel is sitting there with an actual Phase 1 template that makes everyone happy and makes tons of money. All you gotta do is take that exact template and superimpose your characters over it. It's not that hard. But they wanted to rush it. They wanted their justice. They thought, the next big thing is team ups. We need to jump to the team up.
All right, real quick.
Well, and I get where you're coming from, Matt. But at this point, I also understand why James Gunn wants to kind of start fresh. Would you want that polluted water to deal with after 10 years? I mean,
I'm surprised we're getting a soft reboot. Sorry, go ahead.
Real quick, just want to let everyone know that we're still trying to get 5 new YouTube members. We're not?
No, we've had 2 people give 5 memberships each, so we've got 10 new members.
Well, you want 5 more.
Yeah, we want 5 more. Yeah. Thank you all. Who gifted the...
WG, thank you for 5, and I believe it's Andre Anderson gifted 5 as well. So and that was like an hour ago that we missed.
You are a true friend, Andre G.
Yes, indeed. So we're going to cover our final topic for today, and that is, speaking of comic books, Marvel has decided to kill off Ms. Marvel.
Finally, dude.
To no one's care. So basically, we got this article.
Spider-Man looks really tore up about it.
Yeah, for some reason, they decided to kill her off in Spider-Man, even though like
No.
Spider-Man has like zero connection to her.
Wait, no.
Yeah.
Spider-Man's always a part of everything now. You didn't know that?
Well, the thing is like Spider-Man's like their most popular character, and so by shoehorning her death into this comic, it makes people care about it.
Well, and this goes right back to the whole Death of Superman thing. They're trying to make her more important than she really is, and this is kind of the effect of that
Exactly.
going down the road.
And this is directly related to the upcoming release of the Marvels. So they're trying to create some buzz around the Kamala Khan character because her Marvel Plus show or Disney Plus show, I should say, fell kind of flat. Nobody really knows about her. They got this big movie coming up, and so in the comics, like there's this idea, right, that like Ms. Marvel is a popular character. She's not a popular character. Nobody likes her, right?
Mhm.
Nobody cares about her, but they keep trying to shoehorn her into the greater Marvel universe as a more major character than she really is.
Yeah, she popped out of nowhere like 8 years ago, and she just won't go away.
Yeah,
Right.
and she's basically a Mr. Fantastic clone. It's just a Muslim female version of it. But one of the interesting things about this is that the writer who decided to kill her off, so he's very much like an SJW, like very liberal, kind of like social justice, diversity and inclusion
I'm shocked.
guy.
Really?
But he's being accused of racism by the people, the minority that do care about this character, because he decided to kill her off. And we know that she's not dead. Like she's going to be coming back eventually. She's already
Comic
died
book.
once and come back,
Yeah.
right? And when the movie comes out, they'll probably like bring her back or something like that. But I just find it ironic that the people who don't even read comics but like support the character are now attacking this guy for his decision to like do this publicity stunt to kill her off. And we had Ethan Van Sciver on the live stream a couple weeks ago, and we talked about the current state of Marvel and how it's just being like driven into the ground on the comics end by people who don't like comics, don't understand comics, don't understand the characters. And this is just more proof of that. Like nobody gives a crap that she's dying, right? Like because number one, we know she's going to come back. Number two, she's not a very popular character. Now, Matt Vader 74, you're a fan of comic books.
No,
You've
I'm
read
not.
comic books for a long time.
I haven't read a comic book in 10 fucking years, bro. Because they all suck.
Yeah, they do suck. But like, what's your take on this? Do you think that that this is just more garbage from Marvel?
My take on it, my take on it is that it's a publicity stunt to put more eyes on Miss Marvel because
On
she
the
has a
movie.
coming out. Yeah, it's like it's just more of the same. They think it's going to be like another Death of Superman kind of thing where they made 16 kajillion copies of it. No, nobody cares.
It's funny. Nobody
cares.
We need to drum up some publicity. Let's kill this character off. And everyone's like,
Yeah.
who? Who'd you kill?
Yeah, I mean they've killed people before, they're going to keep on killing people in the future, and they're going to keep on coming back. They've done it with everybody from Superman to Wolverine. I think has Spider-Man died? I'm sure Spider-Man's died a couple times. I don't know. It's a comic book trope. It's stupid. It's lame. I'm sure there's going to be 14 different chromium variants of the cover for this issue, and 6 months later they'll find her floating in space or something. I don't know. It's silly. It's just more bad comic book stuff, and I don't give a shit. I don't care. I don't even know if I'm going to watch the movie. So
now, Primitive Ramblings. Have you watched the Ms. Marvel TV show on Disney Plus? And do you think that killing her off in the comics is going to do anything for the upcoming movie?
No, I've seen I watched the first episode of Ms. Marvel and didn't bother continuing after that. It was just really boring and weird. That's kind of the best way I could describe it.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely think this is obviously got something to do with the Marvels. That's what I think it's kind of playing into, because it's Zeb Wells, the guy that's doing this comic we're speaking about. I believe he wrote on the Marvels as well, and She-Hulk, and I think he's also a part of the writing team for the next Deadpool movie as well.
Okay.
So I think there's definitely some connection there, just with trying to just get publicity for Ms. Marvel.
Now, Brian, as head of the diversity and inclusion committee on the Salty Nerd podcast, Do you think it's racist to kill off a Muslim minority female?
Well, Muslim is not a race, so no. It's a religion. Although, I just looked it up. I was like, wait a minute, where did this chick come from? Because the first time I remember seeing her was in the Avengers game. Like, I pre-ordered the game, bought the Avengers game. It's on Steam, ready to play it. And I remember being ultra effing disappointed that the main character I have to play is this character I've never heard of in my life. She's talking with this very annoying 13-year-old boy. I'm a man playing this character, and the story was horrible. And they totally false advertised this game when they said play the Avengers game. But the first half of the first 20 hours of the game, you are playing as Miss Marvel, and finally you can get to play as Avengers once you basically beat the game. Now, I looked it up. Dude, they announced her in 2013. This character is literally like
10 years old.
I think the actual character is younger than the actress that plays her. Bro, the first book came out in 2014. We're talking about less than 10 years old, bro. And they think that anyone cares about this character? Who could possibly care about this character in this time? Why are they why are they putting so much onus on this character that no one asked for and no one really watches? And then the bait and switch, you know what's funny? Like, I saw the Marvels trailer and I'm like, what can make a Brie Larson-led Marvel movie worse? Add another character I don't care about.
Uh-huh. Yeah, right. Tom, you want to chime in on this because it does seem.
I know the answer. I know the answer. Me. Because they can get headlines this way. They can get headlines for a character that you just hit it right on the head, Brian. Nobody gives a shit about. But guess what? There's headlines about him now. There's supposed outcry because the character was killed, just to be brought back just in time for the Marvels to hit theaters. Right. You wait.
Yeah, and Brian, yeah. They made this character. It's not for you. Okay, this character is not for you. This character is for those throngs of 13-year-old Muslim teenage girls out there who are lining up at the comic book store every week to purchase their comic books.
Oh, I didn't know there was a wide fan base in that very specific and niche.
Well,
community.
There's not a wide fan base, but the few fans there are pretty wide. Probably, I'm just saying. I mean, you know.
You know what's wild too is like I'm pretty sure that 13-year-old Muslim girls aren't allowed to buy American comic books.
So yeah, you're probably right about that.
So you picked like the one demographic that can't even purchase your product.
We need to be careful, or we're gonna get death threats.
Yeah, be careful.
We're gonna put a fire.
I'm not criticizing another person's religion. I'm just saying. Fact of the matter is, I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to buy an American comic book.
Probably not.
Well, also with the Marvels coming out, so you got a strong female character, you got a strong woman of color character, and then you got a young minority on both fronts character. So it's basically just virtue signaling taken to the third degree, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah. They actually made a massive mistake when they could have just skipped all of this and just had Monica Rambeau. Like, that character isn't bad. The actress isn't bad. It fits the comics. Like, they could have skipped Brie Larson. They could have skipped Kamala Harris. And they had all their boxes checked right there with that character. They didn't need to do any of this stuff.
Monica Rambeau was around long before the Brie Larson's iteration's character, right?
I know. Yeah, I know.
So, I mean...
It's a better. You should have banked on that character. You could check boxes, please old fans, get new fans. It's a win-win.
Yep, agreed.
But then again, you wouldn't be shooting yourself in the foot though, and that's what they really want to do. So,
all right, guys. So we had a lot to talk about today, and we talked about it. But I want to thank everyone in the chat for being here, especially the people who gave us super chats. Really appreciate it. Just want to give those guys a call out real quick. We got Mexican Iron Man, the Joker's Voice, Gavin Blackburn, the Astro Nerd Boy, Dennis Wright, Channel Starface, Dustin Cole, Sailor Mercury, and Culture Casino. Thank you all so much for supporting the show. We really appreciate all your donations and your support. Let's wrap things up, Tom Connors, where can people find out more about you? And do you have any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. The world is a very big place. You are but a pimple on its ass. No, I'm just kidding. You can find me on Midnight's Edge. You can find me at Midnight's Edge After Dark. I float around all kinds of places. In fact, I'll be going from here over to the pop culture minefield, where we'll be talking about Ghostbusters on Tom and Gary. So, nice. Join us over there if you're so inclined, and especially if you like the movie Ghostbusters.
Great, and be sure to check out Midnight's Edge. You guys do a lot of great work over there.
We try.
Real quick, we got a super chat for $10 from No Money G. Great show, guys.
No money.
Thank you, No Money. Appreciate the $10.
He's not living up to the name.
I know, right? Primitive Ramblings. You have a great little YouTube channel. It's brand new. It's growing. I want to encourage everyone who likes our stuff to go check him out over at Primitive Ramblings. Link in the description. Do you have any final thoughts? And where can people find more of you?
Yeah, you could just find me on Primitive Ramblings, where it's mainly just, doing big breakdowns of bad TV shows and things like that, and just the odd video on just what's going on. And that's about it.
Right on. Well, thank you for being on the show. Appreciate having you here.
No problem.
Brian from the Popcast, any final thoughts? And let people know about the documentary that they're going to be taken to as soon as this stream ends.
Yes, and thank you for that, Matt. I spent an insane amount of time on my doc. It's called Galaxy Quest: The Definitive History, and it's basically about the movie Galaxy Quest. It's one of my favorite all-time films. It's probably my favorite all-time Star Trek movie, even though it's not really a Star Trek movie. And I love this movie to death. And when Shane said, let's make the history, because we both love it, I was like, finally I get to make a history on something I actually adore. And I spent an insane amount of time on it. So I hope that you guys can go watch it. Like you said, the stream here is going to take you over there. But if not, you can just go to Podcast Prime and you'll probably find it. It's premiering in a couple minutes. And I'm doing a premiere for the first time. So fun.
Peter 74, any final thoughts? And what do we got going on this week, even though we've been thrown for a loop because of the robbery?
Oh, what do we got going on this week? I honestly, I'm not really super sure what we're releasing this week. But we do have recording days coming up where we will be discussing the Fast X and the Fast and Furious franchise. I think Tom is going to be coming in because I am not going to be joining you guys for that one, but Conspiracy Tom will be hitting that. We're going to be talking about the MCU and Guardians of the Galaxy coming up fairly soon. And we also have releases coming out for our ongoing coverage of the Warrior series on HBO Max. And we're doing Star Trek stuff in our patrons only stuff. And that's a lot of fun to make for you guys too. So got a lot of stuff coming out, and we like doing it. And I just want to say real quickly to the chat, thank you. It was an amazing chat today. I think we had over 250 people in here for a relatively small stream. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for hanging in there with us today. So
yeah, Matt, I want to remind everyone that on our Tuesday live stream coming up this Tuesday at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time, we have heavy metal singer Dan Vass on with us. Alex is going to cream his pants talking to that guy. But we're also going to be trying to get caught up with our regularly scheduled content. So we appreciate you guys being so patient with us. But for the YouTube members, we have 2 new nostalgic videos out there. If you guys want to watch those, they are available in the playlist. So if you missed the announcement for them, just go to the YouTube members playlist on our channel. You can find all the members content over there. And Vader and I are going to be heading over to the Legion of Memers stream right after this. They asked us to come on, so we're going to hop over there. But be sure to hop over there after you finish watching the Galaxy Quest documentary from the Popcast. Appreciate that. And also, Popcast has Raw Rant. And be sure to subscribe to Primitive Ramblings channel, link in the description. So I want to thank everyone for showing up. So we'll be back here next week. Same salty time, same salty channel. And with that, stay salty, my friends.